Hi, Martin here. Thank you for joining me for this week's turning project video. I hope you're all well and you've had super creative weeks and weekends in your workshops. Now, 20 months ago in September 2015, I did this project, which was called Golden Fire, and it was the first time that I'd used an airbrush. But today, 20 months later, and with 20 more months experience, I'm going to revisit it with this large platter blank. Again, it's Sycamore, and it measures 20 inches in diameter. So it's probably going to max out the lathe over here on this end. So I might have to pull the headstock down to this end of the lathe. But as usual, I need to find the centre, and then using a vaguely straight edge, which is a piece of oak, I'm going to decide which way up I want the piece to be, and I think I'm going to want the piece to be that way up, so this piece of figure here is pointing up towards the top, and then I'm going to draw a line right across the centre, which should be at the piece's widest point. This piece is going to have a frame to it similar to the Burr elm piece I did a little while ago. So I'm going to decide, first of all, I want to kind of work from the outside in to where I want the centre to be. So I want a frame, as it were, which will be about there. Just draw that in roughly. Now I've done that, I've decided I'm going to do it slightly off centre. So the first thing I'm going to do is line up the faceplate across the centre marks there, and draw on with the pencil where I'm going to put the first faceplate. So this is the centre. And I'm going to mark each of those as one. I'm really making this up as I go along. And then I'd like a medallion piece. Oh! And I'll put another centre there. And then centre number 2 is going to go there. And then the third centre, right, so that's going to go, right, okay, so let's mark those as 3. And I'm going to mount it first, get it round, then do centre number 3, then do centre number 2. Yeah, I'll figure it out. So right, so I've got the piece round and I've got it on centre number 3 to start with, because I want centre number 3 to be the most prominent. So I'm going to start just by flattening off where I want centre number 3 to be, and I've marked the radius of the centre on my compass. I'm going to keep out of the firing line and certainly keep body parts out of the way as much as possible. So there is where the kind of the main focus, the main piece of interest is going to be, which is going to be right there. But just like I did with Golden Fire, I want to round it over slightly, and also in keeping with some other pieces that I've done recently, have that rounded over a little bit, so we have you know, a domed feature like a boss or a medallion, that kind of thing. So I'll do that now, and I don't want to make it too much wider than it already is. So I'll dome it down to where I want it. That'll do. Now I need to sand this bit round here before I get the Dremel to it a little bit later on. So I'll do that, and then I will come back and we'll do centre number 2. All right, so I've sanded centre number 3 down to only to 180 because I'm going to Dremel it and do some other bits and pieces to it. And now I've mounted the piece on centre number 2. Now, because I've got to be really careful not to go into centre number 3, of course, because it would ruin it. So I've marked on here where I can work, which is just between these 2 lines. And then everything else over here is going to be part of the frame and the overall kind of surround for the centre piece, or the centre pieces. So back to the bowl gouge. Now, because it's a little less off centre now than it was, I should be able to increase the revs a little bit. So this inside line here is the closest I can go before I start hitting centre number 3. That's good. Now I'm happy with that. I've got the centerpiece here that's going to have a load of decoration on it. The main boss that's going to be the centerpiece, you know, the really eye-catching bit. Round here is going to be some more decoration, which I need to sand, and then there's going to be the frame and some natural wood too. So I'm going to sand that bit and that bit, and then I'll come back to you and we'll start doing some decoration. Okay, so there's the piece sanded down to 400 for the most part. It's sanded to 400 on centre 2, which is this crescent here and this ring. And now I'm going to put some black colour on it. Whoops. Now for this piece, I just want this ring to be really dark reds, oranges with a bit of yellow thrown in. So that's going to be really dark, and then this bit is going to be bright with some textured flame on it. So I'm going to get the intrinsic black. I'm not going to spray it on this time. I'm going to apply it mostly with a towel. I'm going to pick up the ruby colour, the flame colour, burnt orange, honey and black. So I'm going to just put some colour on, then I'll show you. So I'm going to start with burnt orange, and I'm just going to flick it on in places and kind of rub it round a bit. Now the great thing about water-based colour is it gives you a longer working time to blend your colours in like this. Step is to go home and design what I'm going to put on the centre, or in this area of centre number 2. So this morning what I've done is I came back and I cut the frame aspect which goes around here, cut that, sanded it down to 400 and then coloured it with a mixture of earth and brown to make it nice and dark, and then took it off the faceplate. And I've drawn a line down the centre of the piece here. So there's a little mark there and a little mark there. And also when I got home, I put my creative head on and designed the image that I want to go on this area here, which looks like that. And I'm really excited about it. It wasn't quite, or rather it was too big to fit on one piece of paper. So I put it across 2 pieces of paper, which is really helpful because I can then line up the seam across my 2 marks. And then with a couple of bits of artist's masking tape, I can stick it into position and get on with transferring the design. I'm going to use Saril transfer paper, which is a graphite paper, and it's absolutely superb because it rubs out just like pencil. So I've got an eraser here as well. So you slide the transfer paper underneath, and then using a pen you can just go over, you can just trace over the design. Oops. Only needs to be fairly rough. And also if you don't stick the whole thing down, you can lift up to see if there's any, in case you've missed anything. With the design transferred on, I'm happy with how it has turned out, and I've decided I'm going to burn it. On the design, the dark grey areas are for burning and the white areas are for colouring afterwards. And I don't want to shade the burn in, I want to dimple it. So I've got quite an old pyrography machine here by Yannick. This particular tip has a rounded end to it, so I can literally just lob the tip in and create quite an interesting texture. All I've got to do is go round the design with probably several thousand dots and create the background for the flames. So about 3 hours have passed, it started raining as you can probably hear, and the design has been burnt onto the piece, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Now, thinking about the original Golden Fire, there was some rather reckless Dremeling going on, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing in the bit here, and then that's going to go black with gold over the top of that. So On the Dremel extension here, I've got sort of a, I don't know, it's kind of a vase shape. Let's see if we can focus on that. It's kind of a cone shaped bit, and I'm going to hack away in there just the same as I did with the original Golden Fire. Step is to start applying the colour, and I want the colour on this area to be nice and bright, so I'm not going to use, or at least I don't think I'm going to use any black. So I've got some kitchen towel. I use a lot of kitchen towel, and I'm going to start with a burnt orange and just kind of Now, the original Golden Fire was inspired by Nick Agar, and this piece is sort of a further on from that. I've discovered a Canadian turner called Douglas Fisher, and he's absolutely superb. So this piece is kind of inspired by him, plus with my own ideas and twists on it, because I don't like to absolutely copy other people's ideas. I like to take inspiration from others and then work on my own sort of versions of it. Before I add the gilt, I want to be applying the oil. Now for this I use a Danish oil with a UV filter, because I find it just works brilliantly. So I'm going to wipe it on, and that's going to enrich the colours, deepen the wood, darken the black of the burning down. And the piece is back on its third centre, by the way. I'm going to go with, can't get the lid off, a gilt called Trianon, which is quite a bright gold, and I think that will be a super contrast between the dark reds and the yellow and the gilt itself. I think it's going to look terrific. Whoops. So I want the lathe spinning as fast as I can, really, which isn't very fast because it's on its third centre. Then I'm going to get some on the towel. There, that's all I can do on it for today. So, because I need to let the oil dry before I put on the final finish, which will be a wax. But I've got to seal it first, of course. So yeah, I am very, very pleased with how that has turned out so far. Very, very pleased indeed. So we're on to day 4 of the project now, and after you saw me put the oil on, I let it dry overnight, and then I sealed it with an acrylic spray sealer, 3 coats of that, and then I've now added a microcrystalline wax over the top of most of it. The gold medallion here has been left untouched, apart from the sealer, but all round the flame and stuff you may be able to see it, but I actually painted on the wax, the microcrystalline wax, with a fine paintbrush, because I want the colours to be shiny but not necessarily the burnt background. So I'm going to use a buffing wheel on the drill, and it should buff up really nicely. So here's the piece all finished. All I need to do now is sand, seal and paint the back black, and then it will be ready to go up for sale after I've put a little hook on and the name plaque. Now, after I buffed it, where some of the white had gone into the pits of the pyrography, it had dried white, of course. So all I did there was just go through and touch it up with a Sharpie and give it a little rub just to blend it in a bit, and then it's finished, and I'm really happy. To go back to the original Golden Fire has been really nice, to go back 20 months, revisit a project that was nice and popular, and come up with something brand new but along the same lines has been magnificent. It's been an awful lot of fun to turn this. A lot of work, it got me thinking, but it was super. Now, if you are interested in the design of that, it's available to download off the website. Here are a couple of videos. Up the top here is the original Golden Fire video, and then below that is another video from another turner who is doing something similar to this. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.